listening to the Power of Inspiration and Awakening Radio with Julia Griffin. To master a higher frequency for a new state of mind. Once you walked in a forest of splendor in which everything you did and everything you thought was aligned. It is possible at this time to begin to return to the old knowledge. Intuitive healer and manifestor Julia Griffin is here to talk about this unique time in history when all sentient beings, animals, plants, trees, and the earth are intent on creating this change. The wolves awakened her to the most incredible light, which opened gifts and brought knowledge that she longs to share. You are creators, and you are born to be creators of beauty, possibility, and joy. Join Julia on a journey into a beautiful and magical world where amazing possibilities exist. Let us help open the door. The Power of Inspiration and Awakening with Julia Griffin starts right now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Julia Griffin, and you're listening to The Power of Inspiration and Awakening on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay with us for the next hour and let us help you experience a higher vibration and a new state of mind. Why a higher vibration? Because that's where all the good things happen on the spiritual level that change our lives. For those of you who aren't familiar with me, I awakened with wolves when I met a real wolf. It talked to me in words, just the same way that I'm talking now. Over a period of years, they taught me to read energy, hear the thoughts of people, animals, and plants, and I became an intuitive healer and a reader as a result. Now, today we're going to talk about guides. My guest is Marilyn Alauria. Is that correct pronunciation?
Yeah, that is. You actually did great.
Okay. Marilyn Alauria is the author of the best-selling book, Guides, Mystical Connections to Soul Guides and Divine Teachers, a book in the Common Sentience series. She's a gifted psychic, medium, teacher, and coach with an unmatched capacity to ignite deep soul-level transformation for her clients around the world. She provides messages from guides that are always with us and loved ones who have crossed over. After a successful Emmy Award-winning career in the entertainment industry with MTV and NBC Olympics, Marilyn shifted her focus to sharing her natural gifts and helping others discover their own intuitive abilities and living a life from the seat of their soul. She teaches spirituality in a way that leads to a practical, meaningful, and joyous life, which we all want, right? No unicorns, flying carpets, or impossible routines are required. She simplifies the path to living a life of peace, ease, and alignment, making true fulfillment achievable. As a psychic medium, healer, teacher, author, and speaker, she lights up audiences around the world and is devoted to using her abilities to bring awareness and enlightenment to every life she teaches. Now, you're probably thinking, how did she switch careers so much? But it happens to all of us when we get our calling. It usually tends to go in a direction that we never anticipated. And that's one of the things that guides do, right, Marilyn?
Yeah, totally. That's a long bio. I'm like, they need the short bio.
Well, I thought they might want to know more about you, so I put it in there. And I thought it was interesting that you had changed your occupation so drastically.
Yeah. Well, I actually, it was kind of I went from TV production to acting. And then I kept hearing spirits. I got locked in rooms. There's all these like different things that happen. I talk about it on my podcast, Who Can It Be Now? And I went to see a psychic and she's like, the dead are trying to reach you. You need to see a medium. And I went to see a medium, and the medium, the minute she walked in, she said, you're a medium. And that's when it opened. And I had to learn how to use it because it scared the crap out of me. Actually, I liked it, but I was like, what is going on? It was really unnerving. So,
well, I love hearing wolves, but it's not something you can just tell your friends. And I was talking to a wolf last night. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's
not. I mean, the world has changed a lot since then. But I mean, I don't even think there were animal communicators yet when I started talking to wolves.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? For me, there was nothing on the internet. Like I had to really learn from my guides. So I know exactly what you're talking about. It's not something today it's a little more like you could tell people and they would get it.
Right. So, all right. I really enjoy your book, and I think we're going to help a lot of people as we go through this and talk about it. And your new book opens with this. Before I consciously knew what guides are, or that we all have them, my soul experienced deep conversations with these beings through dreams, prayers, and feelings. That something greater than us exists and is here to support us. During the most crucial moments of my life, with my outstretched desires reaching into the darkness, I would wonder, am I alone? Am I safe? I couldn't articulate the rumblings in my heart, but at moments, my inner awareness caught glimpses of a faint, shimmering light guiding me to its love. Before I met my guides, a love with something greater than me had danced in and out of my life. Then the moment happened. I found them, and we have been dancing through life ever since. So I would assume that this opening or this work was the inspiration for your book. So tell us a little bit about your book, what we'll find out in there. And again, it's guides, mystical connections to soul guides and divine teachers.
I think I have to go back further. I was raised Catholic, and my mother was extremely spiritual, and she wasn't the type of Catholic that it was like very dogma, even though I went to a Catholic school for 12 years. And she gave me freedom in thought. And I feel like I was spiritual from day one, and she was super spiritual. So I had always had the presence of saints and prayer and God and Jesus. And I saw little miracles happen in my life, and I saw miracles happen in her life as well. And because of that, I think it allowed me to open up to something greater than myself. And it was during, as we all know, those most difficult moments in our life when you're brought to your knees and you're praying and something magical happens that you start really realizing you're not alone, and it's a very comforting thing. And when you get the evidence of for me, and I'm sure for you, Julia, and I'm sure for a lot of people listening, Julia, is I heard my name called, or dreams would come true, or I would know something about someone, those little inklings, or you keep seeing butterflies repeatedly or numbers repeatedly. That is spirit trying to communicate with us. And if you pay attention, it's quite magnificent what happens. And it really brought me home to my soul. It broke me open and brought me home to my soul. So that's why I think it's important.
It is the biggest relief in the whole world when you realize that you're not alone.
Yeah.
There are energies in the other world that are willing to help you. And I know there's a really old out of print book I have on the Kabbalah. And one of the things that has carried me through so many difficult times, it says that people can't see it, but there are more for you in the invisible world than there are against you in the physical world.
Yeah, I agree with that. What was the name of that book?
It's Kabbalah. I can look it up and see for you.
Oh, yeah, I have it actually. I think, and I've never looked at it. Okay. You know, what's interesting about that is I used to say that with deceased people, because people would be mourning so much that this person's gone. And I'm like, you can have a stronger relationship with them in spirit than you can in the physical. And the big thing for me is the reason why I want to get these teachings out there is I didn't want people depending on me for that information. Everybody can do it. And I'm sure you and I came from the world where you could only do it if I'm inherited it. So it's definitely came down my family line, but that's no longer true. Everybody can do it. Whereas in the days when I was coming up and it's like, this one has this and you don't have it. And it was very like, I'm better than you. And there was a lot of competition in the space, which I didn't understand. And for me now, it's like everybody has this. And if you have an interest in it, you can open up to it. So that's the reason why I wrote
Well, we're definitely going through a big awakening, and there's much more light that's available for people developing their gifts right now.
Yeah.
That's the benefit of it. So you said that the first step for people who want to find their guides is inviting them in. So tell us about that.
So many people struggle with communicating with their guides. And they're like, I haven't met my guide. I don't hear my guide. And all you have to do is invite them in and trust with intention that that invitation is enough. And then pay attention. Get out of the stress, get out of the anxiety, get out of the fear that they're not there for you, and just trust by inviting them in that they are there. And then you'll see it, as we all know, through dreams, repetitive symbols, and somebody will say something and it'll be the answer you've been looking for.
In general, for me, and I don't know if it's true for other people, if it's a message that continues to repeat, Like I'll
Yeah.
have a thought or an idea, and then it'll be in my inbox and email. It will be on Facebook. I will look up a quote and it pertains to that. So repetition is another thing that people can look for.
Yeah. And the thing, I'm glad you brought that up because the thing that I think people miss is because they're so stuck on it not working, they miss the things that are right in front of their face. They don't give it credibility. I found so many people were like waiting for the skies to part and the thunder and lightning for them to have that experience. And I'm like, no, it's so simple as just walking out your front door and, meeting someone who says something to you that you need to hear. And then, like you said, seeing it in an email or reading it in a book or hearing it in a TV show, the messages are repeating.
Right. And they do get louder and they get more direct over time. But I know in the beginning it can just be like a brief feeling of peace because that's a change.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. It's
So to
yeah,
so
it's
tell
beautiful.
us about some of the differences that guides have made in your life. And I think you have a good story about Yogananda, who I love.
No, I don't. That's not my
Oh,
story.
that was in your notes that you
Yeah.
said.
Well, oh no, that must have been. So the book is comprised, it's totally okay because the press
Mhm.
person sent it. The book is comprised of other people's stories. So the beginning part is me introducing people and teaching people how to communicate with guides. The middle part is two of my stories and other people's stories. And then the end part is practical advice, how to do it, like exercises, because I'm all about experiential experience. So that is the thing. With me, they've been present so much in my life. And I'm actually going through a very interesting time right now in this beautiful month of September 2024, where it's been a really challenging, intricate experience. I'm in one of those experiences, life-changing experiences again. And if I had not had guidance with me, it would be, I don't really know where I'd be right now because it's been very, yeah, lost my mother in November, lost my dog. There's just been so, I got a puppy. There's just been so many things. So one of the ways they showed up for me when I decided to leave LA and move up to Marin, where I live now, it was a very difficult real estate market. And they guided me the entire time about where to go. There was a house I was going to bid on because there was no properties. And they were like, do not bid on that house. On Wednesday, there's going to be 3 more properties in that particular area. So I waited, 3 more properties came up. Then I was going to overbid, really, really overbid on a house to try to get it. They said, don't do it. There's going to be more properties that come on market on Monday. You're going to have more time. It was unheard of when I bid on this particular house I'm in. There were like 8 properties available in this area, which is unheard of. I was watching this market for a long time. So it's things like that that they will help you to make really great decisions in your life. And I think the biggest thing, as you know, is faith and trust, trusting those messages and following it through and then seeing where it takes you. And it's pretty remarkable. And they've done it. I've been with them now for over 18 years. And I can't imagine my life without them.
Yeah, I'll tell you a funny story about that. I wanted to buy a car with just a few miles on it, a used car, because they're cheaper. And I had some things in mind that I wanted, but I looked at lots of cars, could never make up my mind. And so I wrote a letter to my angels and I said, put the car that I'm supposed to buy in a place that I can't help but see it. And the next day I went to the bank and, I was doing the cartridge thing and I wasn't close enough. So I got out of the car and there was a car that said for sale, giant, giant sign. So I bought that one. And
That's
it was
amazing.
just what I wanted, a little red convertible, but I didn't know I wanted a little red convertible. If you had asked me, I never would have chosen that, but it was perfect for that time in my life.
Yeah. It's amazing how they do that. Like I live in a place that my whole view is trees. I could show it. I don't know if this is a video. And I know it's video with you and me, but it's
Right.
absolutely stunning and beautiful. And my windows are dirty, so they're all going to see my dirty windows, but that's my view. It's
Oh,
amazing.
that's gorgeous.
And I've never knew that existed. I knew I wanted nature, but I came from Manhattan to LA, 2 cities. And I did a vision book with trees and live someplace where minutes become moments, like very peaceful. And my guides, I surrendered to them and they got me here. I would have never been able to dream this up because I've never had this experience.
Right. And
They
so that answers a big question about your book. I was going to say, there is some difficulty in manifesting something that you've never had before because you don't know how it feels, but guides help with that.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things I like to teach, and I'd love to hear what you think about this, is surrender. So it's like having the intention, having the goal, putting it out there, and then surrendering and being in the journey so that you could see that, go right, go left, talk to this one, go here.
Mhm.
And what they have for us is so much greater than we can even imagine because we're constantly envisioning from the past. They always told me
Right.
stop dreaming with brackets on, take the brackets off. We have something greater. Go ahead. You were going to say something.
Well, I was going to say, I think the past is useful and that the beautiful things that happened are true qualities of our soul. We
Yeah.
want to re-experience that. But the other parts with the limitation are really, it's really something as human beings, we're always struggling to break out of.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. I feel like I'm in a moment like that now where I'm brushing up the limitations and reworking them.
Yeah, I do too. I have very strong memories that come in, and then I'll say, it's okay, you're clearing that. That's
Yeah.
better.
I love that. That's great.
I thought, am I going to have to remember every moment of my life? And I just kind of heard, well, yeah, lots of it. I was like, okay, fine. But I try to surrender the memory because I'm no longer in it.
Yeah, yeah. That's great. I love that. And it's there to show you something in the moment to teach you and then move on. Great.
Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
just to let go of an emotion that's repetitive is my guess.
Yeah.
Because
And
I always say that when we feel down, feels like every time we've ever been down or sad or whatever, it's the same feeling and they're just different levels of it. But one thing guides can help us with is getting out of those feelings and projecting higher feelings.
I agree 1000%. It's a beautiful way to say it.
And I'm sorry about your mother and dog. I went through that in 2022. So I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
It's a big empty spot, but once it starts to change, your life does get better.
Yeah. Yeah. I've really been taking the opportunity to dive deeper into my spiritual journey and to really make big changes in my life. So,
You have to. There's nothing else to do.
yeah, exactly. And that's where our guides can help us.
That's right. So I'm looking through this. Okay. So all of our guides want us to tap into our wisdom and live a more spiritual life and fulfill our mission to discover why we're here. And one really important thing you put is they can help us to love ourselves. And I think that's just such a major thing.
Yeah. So I do a podcast called Who Can It Be Now? I actually paused it. And I love the title Who Can It Be Now? Because it allowed for so much. It could be a spirit, it could be me interviewing you, it could be anything at all. I tell a lot of stories on it. And the tagline ended up being, it took me a while to find it. So it's Who Can It Be Now? It's you. It's always you.
Yeah.
Because our guides are reflections of our highest truth and our soul and our love for ourselves. And they're teaching us how to love ourselves completely. So it always comes down to you. It's always you. And that's what I love about them. They're not taking away our free will.
Yeah. I was talking to a friend of mine and I was saying, there's a quote by Walt Whitman, and he says that there are infinite parts of himself. And it's
Mm,
sort of like from the guides, it's like one day you'll get a message to draw. You're like, I haven't been drawing since I was 16. What is this about? But if you go in that direction, things open up. And then the other part is that I started thinking about it. There's all this stuff about gratitude, but what we're really grateful for is our connection to our
yeah,
inner self and to the universe.
that's
That's what
beautiful.
we're expressing gratitude for. Not just this thing is here or this thing is here. It's that we've correctly used our power to create.
I love that. I love that. I also love the drawing. I'm going to go back to that. Both of those are great because um they I do the same thing. They'll tell me go do some watercolor or something. They had me paint my soul like a year ago and it was absolutely beautiful and I'm not a painter. And what I love is they push us past our own limitations. Like you might have been told when you were younger, you're not an artist, or you can't draw, or you're not that good at this, you're not so and so. And then your guides have you sit down and do it. And I framed it because I loved it so much. I was like, this is beautiful.
Hmm.
So I love that you said that. And I love what you said about gratitude. It's a beautiful way to frame it.
I think it's different. And I think that that's why they always say gratitude works. But if you're not thinking that you and the universe created what's good, you're kind of off the track.
I agree. I agree. Because then you're putting all your power on things outside of you and not.
Right.
So that's what's great.
Yeah. So that to me is a fun way to think about it. No, I know a lot of people have conflicts about their mission or fulfilling their mission.
Mm.
And I try to say when we work on manifestation in class that just try to feel the direction.
Yeah.
go in the direction. You don't have to know what it is, just feel the pull.
You know, it's so interesting you're bringing that up because I'm creating a whole course around this now about finding your purpose because I have found in most spiritual communities that it's, at least for mine and the community I'm in, it's life experience plus skills plus passion equals purpose.
Mhm.
Because many healers and spiritual people, it's like you had your experience with your wolf, right? I've had my experience with guides saving my life, you know, and many times. And we take these life experiences, we learn something from it, we go on these journeys, and then we want to teach somebody else who's struggling with it. And we've developed all these skills, and then we have these passion. Like my biggest passion is to help people believe in their dreams and themselves and to
I think,
trust decisions. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
oh, I live in a, or I grew up in a place that was very wild, a lot of swamps, a lot of trees, a lot of thorns. And if you go into a new part of it, you have to break that down and go into it. And if you keep going there, and maybe you take a machete with you and clear it out, anybody can follow you in there after a while, even a
Yeah.
child. So I see it as it's sort of that way. You're going into a place where no one's been for maybe 100 years. But as you use that path and as you make that path, everyone can come with you.
I love that. That's a great visual with a lot of meaning. That's beautiful. It's a great way to explain it.
So, even if it's just a feeling and you're following that feeling, you're using persistence. If you add a visual, you're manifesting. And if you keep going, you'll get to what's you.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think a lot of people, at least from my experience, they're waiting for someone else to tell them what to do or who to be. And
Hmm.
I saw this, you know, it was really clearly on a call once. This woman was like, it was in a reading, and she was like, somebody told me I'm a healer, but I don't know what kind of healer I am. Can you tell me? I'm so afraid. And she was so afraid to study any type of healing modality because she was afraid of getting it wrong. And that's where people get stuck. They think you're going to tell me my purpose when really it's just a journey finding your purpose because your purpose is going to continue to switch and change and grow and evolve as you grow and evolve. So it's important to me that people stop putting their power on other people, stop giving people their power, stop giving it away, even to your
I, I,
clients.
I do think a lot of magical people who were maybe killed during medieval times have a lot of fear about using their gifts.
Yeah, but we are in a period, as you know, that it's so important to come out with our gifts.
It's safe to come out with our gifts, would
Yeah.
be a better way of saying it, I think.
Yeah.
No one's going to do anything to you, and people will really benefit from it.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's needed. It's necessary.
It's really needed. Every single person who can hold light right now, think about your heart or act on it. You're doing a service for the entire world at this point in time.
I agree. I agree. It's funny. Somebody just asked me, are your people hiding? Because her people were hiding. And I'm like, no, they're actually coming out. They're stepping out. They're ready.
I agree. That's my feeling about it too.
Mhm. Yeah.
So when people say they have a desire, how do you tell them to communicate with their guides to make that desire come true?
Um, that's a really good question because there's different ways, and I teach people to use their own personal instrument. So what I really want them to do, they can do it in many ways. They can do it in meditation. I do a lot of guided meditations, but they can also do it just walking in nature and having conversation. They could do it while washing dishes. I find that speaking it out loud is really beneficial because not only do you, when you speak something out loud, you're listening to it as well. So
Mhm.
there's more of a complexity to the conversation. There's more depth to it than in speaking it in your head. So I find that it's very beneficial to do that. But I'm a big believer in don't wait for the guide to choose you, you choose the guide. Because
Yeah.
so many people are waiting for the guide or they're speaking to just all this energy out there and they don't really know what they're speaking to. And I'm a big teacher in know who you're speaking to and know where you're getting information from because it's really important to me.
Well, you said something that's so important, and I do the same thing. If I hear a voice or I hear a message and it kind of continues to go on, I'll say, are you a being of light? Or are
Mhm.
you so and so? And you'll
Yes.
either get a yes or a no. If you get no answer, disconnect because you should be hearing a yes.
Exactly, exactly. And that was one of the when I first did it, I would have guides walk in and a guide would stop in front of a person and you'd say, "Are you from the highest light and highest alignment with me?" And it's been my experience that, and it sounds like yours too, that they always answer honestly
Yes.
from that question. And if they say no, see you later, take the next one. But people who even struggle with that, because some people can't see, I try to work with sound, I try to work with feeling, I work with different things so that they learn their instrument. I don't want them to struggle with the fact that they don't have vision yet. They can develop vision.
Right.
Then pick a tree, pick a wolf, pick a Archangel Michael, draw your guide, paint something, and just communicate, but continue to communicate with that one particular guide, and you will grow your communication. My communication is very direct and very, and it sounds like yours is too. It's very strong. I know
Yeah.
exactly who they are, how they talk to me, where they are. There's no questions in my mind about it.
I think my biggest phrase lately is, okay, I'll stop everything I'm doing. I'll do exactly what you want. Stop telling me.
Exactly. I know. They've been asking me, they're like, can you just let us guide you? That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. But in the beginning, it's always good to ask. As soon as you hear or feel the connection, ask.
Yeah. 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 And I'd love to share a story with that real quickly, as I had a friend who was very connected, and she was getting all this advice and taking it. And from where I was standing, it was not very good advice. And I said, where are you getting that advice? She's like, my guides. And I said, who are your guides? And she's like, the fairies, the gnomes, the this, the that. And I'm like, oh, you don't really know what you're connecting to. And you're just taking advice. And I'd seen her make like mistake after, like not good. Nothing's a mistake because you learn from it.
Right. But
But
detours.
what'd you say?
I call them detours. You've gotten
Yeah.
off the path to learn a lesson.
But you see the frustration, and it's like you would have less frustration or going down a road, moving someplace that's not really beneficial for you if you
Right.
knew exactly who you were talking to and you weren't just taking information from the ethers. But there are people that I know that are very connected, that they do feel it's just like an energy that they're connecting to. That's okay.
Right.
But know where you're taking the information from.
And see the results. If you're consistently wrong or it doesn't have a beneficial ending, you need to start over with channeling guides.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing is, like, sometimes people will say to me, well, my guide told me to do so and so, and I did it, and it wasn't the best thing for me. I don't know if you can hear my cat howling upstairs, but my cat is howling. But I always find that when it very rarely happens, but when that happens, I just go right into communication with my guides and I say, what was I meant to learn from this? Why did this happen for me? What am I supposed to do? Because they can't give us every answer. We have to have the life experience. We
Right.
have to have the character building moments. So,
Yeah. Like sometimes I'll get a message to turn in traffic and then I'm like, oh God, now I'm going to sit here for 15 minutes. I was like, why
right.
did this happen? And the message is, you already know how to navigate. You're supposed to be depending on that unless it's like a really tight situation.
Yeah, that's
You're
great.
asking us for knowledge that you already have.
That's great. I love that. That's so
So,
true. That's so true. You're asking us for knowledge you already have. That's great.
yeah. And I do know because I worked with them for years to figure out what to do about traffic and not to get upset in traffic. So that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, so people are going to ask right away, so what do I mean not to get stuck or upset in traffic? If you can teach yourself to become calm and imagine that the traffic is flowing, it will. If you
Mhm.
see yourself always taking the correct turn, whether you're lost or you're not lost, somehow you'll get there by taking that turn that your intuition suggests.
Oh, I love that. That's great. I don't get into a lot, I'm in a small town, so
Mhm.
I'm not in a lot of traffic, and I was in traffic last week and I was like, oh, very frustrated. So I'll try that.
Right. So that's just an easy way of doing it. I didn't say I was patient, folks. I said I was persistent. There's a
Yeah.
difference.
There is a difference.
So we're going to go ahead and go to break. You've been listening to The Power of Inspiration and Awakening. I'm Julia Griffin, and I've been with Marilyn Alauria. And we're going to come back and talk more about her book about guides so you can find your own guides and benefit from her knowledge. We'll be right back. I'm Julia Griffin with The Power of Inspiration and Awakening on Transformation Talk Radio, where you can find a higher vibration and a new state of mind. I'm here with my guest, Marilyn Alauria, and we're talking about guides. Everything you ever wanted to know, I think. Earlier, we talked about contacting them And now we're going to go into it a little more deeply for the next 20 minutes or so. So, Marilyn, what I want, something interesting you said is that sometimes guides come from past lifetimes. And the wolves made it clear to me that I'd spent a lot of lifetimes with them, particularly lifetimes where I'd had initiations of the soul. So tell us about guides and past lifetimes. You don't often read that.
I feel that guides could be people that we have walked this earth plane with before, and they are here to not only help themselves, but help us. And to really, maybe there was a lesson or a lesson that we still needed to learn, or some kind of courage that we have to build, or some type of faith that we have to build, that they are here to help us do it. And there's a familiarity between our souls, there's a familiarity between us that allows more comfort there. There's like a comfort level and a trust. And there's just like a, for me, the line of energy that I have at my guides is so intimate. It's so beautiful and deep, that existence already is there. So it becomes like, oh, I know you, I feel you. Oh, okay, this is great. And then you can just move into communication a little bit easier because there's already a familiarity, which I,
Right. And people might have a guide and not know. I mean, I knew the wolves for 4 or 5 years before I realized we'd had past lifetimes together.
yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because when my guide stepped in, I didn't get to know them or where they came from. I just got into communication and I just started learning from them because they were teaching guides. So, and there wasn't, like we said before, the internet, and there was like, it wasn't even like that many books. I couldn't find
No.
anything on clairaudience, clear hearing. They had to teach it to me. They taught me clairvoyance in a way that I didn't see out there. And it wasn't until later on that I started learning who they were. And that didn't matter because they just wanted to develop this relationship with me, this trust with me, and this, this back and forth. And they wanted to teach me. That was the main thing because they knew before I knew that I was going to be teaching this stuff. I didn't
Well,
know
they
it.
knew you were ready. That's the
Yeah.
issue.
Yeah. But so, what's so interesting about it? When they came into my life, I was still acting and I didn't want to do this work.
No,
It,
nobody does. It's
right.
hard.
But then when I had my moment with God and I was like, okay. And then it all fell into place. Everything fell into place. So it was like perfect.
Yeah, there are like moments where you're like, oh, no, no way I can do this. And then just suddenly there's a day, well, I guess I'll do it no matter what I have to do because I'm so tired of the weight of
Yeah.
feeling this thing calling me and being on top of me.
Yeah. And then it does become easier. And it's really so beautiful. It really is.
And the weight goes away. For people who wonder what I'm saying, maybe you think about your future and you know there's something out there for you. And you probably also feel that there's some potential that you haven't reached yet. Well, when you step into it, all those feelings will go away.
It's interesting. You keep talking to, and this is really important, the people that are listening. What is their biggest struggle? Let's talk about that and how our work with guides, because I know that's what you teach, right?
Right.
But I want to know a little bit more about their struggles so that I can offer up something with you to help them grow on their journey.
Fear, anxiety, and I think everybody has a fear until they really go into the spiritual journey of feeling like they're going to lose their life or lose who they are.
Oh, it's such a big one. Wow. How do you address that with them? I'm curious, and then I would love to share how I address it.
Well, I find the way that you move into who you are and what you want. And I remind them of how great it feels with those memories that come from your soul.
Yeah.
That's what you're stepping into. And it's new. And it doesn't mean that you can't go into a different direction if it doesn't exactly work.
Yeah.
And the other part is what I found is the way that the world is right now. There's an awakening energy and there's a weird, like, world energy. And the best way to be out of that stressful, lower consciousness is to come into awakening and to come into spirituality. Because when you're at a higher vibration, you can't feel it.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true. I don't even, people talk about it. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. So, and I hate, I don't get into conversation about it because I so don't go
Want
into
to
that
get
energy at
pulled
all.
down.
No, not at all. Something I want to add to this, I love how you describe that. One of the things for me, it was very important for me to still be practical. it was very important for me to still be grounded and to be able to have a normal life, normal in the sense of quotes, and I was able to do that. And I think anybody can do that. You can be a highly spiritual person working in this field and still be a chameleon if you choose to be with a lot of different types of people without losing yourself. I don't feel like I lose myself. I don't feel like I'm not in touch with myself, but I also don't feel the need. I play tennis, and I'm not going to go out on a tennis court and start talking about woo-woo things because it really is not going to go over well. And I don't need to, because I get so much satisfaction and fulfillment in the work that I do that I can go out and be in different scenarios and still be a very grounded person. I'm all about teaching the grounded, practical part of this.
Plus, it's interesting to see what, quote, normal people are doing with their lives. And
Yeah.
it's fun to listen.
Yeah. And a lot of times when they find out what I do, and I'm sure this is with you, they're very fascinated by it. And, some people don't believe it. And I don't care about that either. I'm like, you can have whatever belief you want. It's not going to
No,
upset me. I don't mind it.
no,
So,
no. I
and
mean, it's like the presidential thing. You can vote for whoever you want. I don't care.
yeah, me too. I don't even, we don't even talk about politics in my group
Right.
because it's of no, it's just, we don't have that
No, I have a good friend, and if one of us slips and talks about it, we say, "Oh no, we're on the bad channel again.
Oh, yeah.
Turn it off."
That's great. That's great.
So I wondered if you would tell us about how, with your guides, you got your house, your first house, because that is a great story.
Yeah. So I did share a little bit about that in the beginning, but one of the most beautiful stories with this is I was really struggling in LA. I was really unhappy. And I had a beautiful house in LA and I wanted to leave. And I kept going into meditation, asking my guides, where should I move? Where should I move? Where should I move? And they weren't telling me. And then somebody told me about Marin and it sounded really good. It sounded perfect for me. And I came up to visit and I loved it. And I thought it was really beautiful and it just opened up my heart. And then I got into meditation. I was like, should I go to Marin? Should I go to Marin? They weren't answering me. And I got so frustrated. I was in a meditation. I was like, fine, don't tell me. And all they showed me was this big yellow and black butterfly flying around the room. And I was like, I'm done. And I ended the meditation. I was like, I'm going for a walk because I'm just so frustrated with this. And the minute I walked out the door, my front door, what was flying around my front yard? A yellow and black butterfly. And that's when I knew. And I came up here with my dogs to just test it out. And the night before I was supposed to come up here, they were like, go to Soto and buy some clothes. And I was like, I don't need any clothes. I'm all packed. They were like, go to Soto right now. And I went to the store and I started talking to the manager there. And I was like, yeah, I'm going up to Marin tomorrow. She's like, you're going to Marin. My sister-in-law is a realtor. Let me put you in touch with her right away. And normally I would be like, yeah, okay. She put me in touch. That night we spoke. The next day I met with her. And one of the ways I know how I want to live someplace or where I want to live is I need to see the houses. I need to, because home is so important to me. And she took me around to see all these houses. And I was like, that's it. And within 4 months, I was moved, sold my house right away. And every step, they just kept taking me every step.
And if I remember correctly, you didn't want the house that you found, or you didn't like the house you found. You did it because your guide said you should.
That was my other house.
Oh,
So
okay. That was the one you renovated. That's quite the
and
story.
that is a story too. So, I was buying a house in LA. My father was helping me with the down payment. He was being very difficult about it. And he was like, it's this house or nothing else. And the house was in rambles. It was trashed. And I walked in and my guys were like, get the house, get the house, get the house. You're going to get the house, get the house. And I got the house and they gave me the keys. And I walked in and I just burst into tears because it was horrible, absolutely horrible. And they kept telling me it was going to be okay. And I had a contractor come over. He tapped the tiles. They all fell.
Oh,
There
no.
was a designer walked in holding her face because I had to get a remodel. I had to do a whole remodel then. There was mold, everything. And I was laying on the floor of the house just crying, like, what did you have me do? And then they sent me to an architect who did like half price for me, completely took me under his wings, built the most beautiful house, and I made $500,000 on it when I sold.
Wow. What a great story.
And it was a gorgeous house. And that was all them. And I loved that house, but I was done with LA, unfortunately.
Right. So you say that there are angels of money and love, and I know everyone is going to want to know about that. So tell us more.
Angels, there are different guides for different things. You can actually have a marketing guide too. So you can find guides that'll help you with very specific things, a love guide, a health guide, a money guide, so they will help you. And when you work with like one guide just in relationship and just with love, they will guide you completely into what you need to know about yourself and where you need to go and who you need to be in relationship with. And therefore, when you meet someone, like you're thinking about it, that one guide will be by your side, like, no, don't do this. You need to go, get out of
Mhm.
this. And it's the same with money, abundance. You can have a guide in a specific area. And what I like about that is it allows you again to build an even stronger relationship, to know who that's the guide I'm going to go to for this specific problem, instead of
Right.
taking it from a mass collective, which I don't have a problem with collectives, guides,
Yeah.
but it helps you to get really the marketing guide was phenomenal, teaching me how to market my business.
And so what do? You just ask for a guide that's specifically good with money? Do you ask for a special person? What's your prayer you use for that?
Well, with angels, there are specific angels that are already documented for these particular areas. So you could always go in and find that particular guide for that area and just work with them.
Mhm.
Or you can think of a famous person that's deceased that is amazing at finances, and you could work with that guide. Usually, if you choose that guide, they have chosen you. You
Right.
don't have to, like, you could do the no and yes answer, but usually if they chose you. Just like Saint Joseph helps you with homes.
Right. Helps you
Definitely
move.
was praying with him to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When someone really can't sell their home, I'm always like, okay, you're going to have to go dig a hole and put a statue in upside down.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
it's amazing how that'll help. So if we have saints that have always helped, like Saint Therese and all these different saints for different reasons, why wouldn't we have guides for the same thing that you would pray to? And you can write your own prayer to them and your own
Right.
intention.
And I think something important that you say is that it's really learning about how you hear this and how you communicate. It's
Yeah.
about what's inside of you.
Yeah. So again, the biggest thing I teach is you're the instrument.
Right.
So what I mean by that is how you hear, how you interpret, how you feel. If they bring up a memory, if you're asking a question and they bring up a memory, there's usually information in that story to help you move forward, that they want you to move forward.
Right.
So you have to learn how you see, hear, feel, and sense. You have to know how your instrument works. It's really important.
Okay, then something else interesting that you said we can use divination tools. And I know that I heard the person who had published Barbara Qualhan, who had published those cards, she said that it's a way that the gods or the higher energies come through and talk to us and tell us what it is they want us to know.
So for me, I don't disagree with that, but it's more for me about turning on how you're seeing, hearing, feeling, sensing, knowing. So when I'm using tarot, and I don't use it anymore, but when I used tarot, I was learning what the cards meant, and I was definitely getting guidance through it. But I was also learning how I see and how I was interpreting, because I teach the symbolic language of your soul. And what I mean by that is tarot has very specific symbolic meanings in it.
Right.
But when you study it, you could look at the fool's feather, the white feather in the fool's cap, right? Which is
Mhm.
spirit, and spirit is guiding him and guiding him through the crown chakra. But you can also then go into your own memory of what is a feather for you? What is a white feather to you? And that sometimes people, that means they're deceased people are talking to them. So it allows you to have more of a conversation using your own personal experience to go in depth. So what I think it helps people do is to stay away from, it allows you to have more of a multidimensional conversation because you're using so much more of your own self to get the information.
Right. No, I know I used to do the cards a lot. I don't anymore because eventually all they could tell me was what I was thinking and feeling.
Right. Exactly. It's the same with the pendulum. I learned how to manipulate the pendulum, so I couldn't use the pendulum anymore because
Right.
I knew how to do a yes, no, and maybe. So I couldn't trust it any longer because if I wanted a yes, the pendulum was moving in a yes.
Yeah. And so, I mean, anytime I try to use anything to divine the future, I'm like, you can't do that. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, none of this stuff works for me anymore. It's okay.
But it's a great way, and I'm sure you would agree with this. For me, it was such a great way to open up. And
Sure. I mean, I did it all the time for about 4 or 5 years. And the interesting thing is I used to work with another psychic and we would clear each other. And if you do tarot, what you always think if you don't like it is you'll do it over. But then it says the
same
same
thing.
thing because it's still just reading your energy. But we found out that if she cleared me and I cleared her, we would get a completely different tarot spread.
Oh, that's fascinating.
I
That makes
know.
sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Because we were clearing what we could see in the other person that was blocking the outcome that we
Yeah.
wanted.
That makes sense to me. That's very fascinating.
And that was really fun because we could see if we had done it or not.
Yeah.
If we didn't get it, we would say, okay, well, we'll come back tomorrow and clear some more.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that brings up a good point because when people are channeling and talking to their guides, you have to move yourself out of the way in order to get the information. So you have to learn how to clear yourself, even in channel situations, in order to be able to have those conversations.
Right. So for people who don't know, let's say I'm channeling my lesson or she's channeling a book or a class. If it feels like you can't get the information or it feels like it's going in the wrong direction, you have to let go of whatever feeling or thought or belief is blocking it to get to
Yeah.
what you're supposed to say.
Yeah. And for me, I put my attention a lot on them. I know where they stand. I know what they feel like. I know how they talk to me. So when I take the attention off of me and I put it on them, I'm automatically moving myself out of the way a lot of the
Right.
times.
Or your personality anyway,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
because it's still your soul that's coming through.
Totally. I agree with that. But what's not there is the manipulation, the
Mhm.
attachments. So that I'm able to move out of the way for the most part. And then sometimes, like if I'm emotionally attached to an outcome, I have to do a little bit of a harder work to get myself out of the way in order to get the information. And then sometimes I'll ask them, am I manipulating? And they will honestly answer yes or no. I have a
Mhm.
lot of tools about manipulation, but so you can learn how not to.
Right, which is really important because, can I put it? I know what to say. Okay, when I started to be able to see anything pretty much that I wanted to see, my children were pretty young, so I would just tune in and see what they were doing whenever I wanted to do that. And then one day it hit me, I want someone to do that with me? No,
Yeah.
I wouldn't want someone to be able to do that with me. And so I decided I'm just going to have bigger faith and decide they're in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Actually, I'd made a deal in the beginning that I would never read anybody who I didn't have their soul's permission, but you probably had your kid's soul's permission to do that.
I probably did, but I just didn't want to use my power that way.
No, I think that's great. I think that's
But
great.
but that's an example of how we manipulate reality, but we're not really aware that we are.
Yeah. 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 And you don't want to manipulate reality in order to get the deeper, higher meanings.
No, we want the real energy to come through. We're not trying to do magic. We're trying to let the magic come through us
Yeah. I love the way that you said that. That's great. So true.
because manipulating is never going to get us what we want because it comes from the head and not the heart.
Right. Right.
And I
Yeah.
think,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I think there's a big discernment right now. Is what we're doing coming from the head or the heart?
Yeah. I don't know. Are you asking that? Because for me, it's always from the heart.
That's what I'm saying. But everybody who wants to awaken has got to make that decision.
Yeah. Well, that's why I like the tools and the techniques because when you do the tools, you get out of your head. I teach in a very, like, I'm sure you do too, out of box way so that you kind of get out of the linear thinking. You've got to get into another way of doing that you're not used to. So you're getting information.
Right.
And that's the way I like to teach because I like to get you out of the programming, out of the patterns so that you can start getting to the information.
Yeah. I'm not sure how many people understand this, but I do teach the alchemical symbol imagery, which those are really weird. But what I try to tell them is I knew nothing about them. I just looked at them every day for like an hour for 2 or 3 years. And then all of a sudden I knew what they meant. So their superconscious is getting it. They
I
may
love
not know it, but the superconscious is getting it because it makes no sense. You can't use your mind to figure it out.
Yeah. And that's a great example of ways to turn on your work, turn on how you can work, turn on your heart and work that way. I love that.
Yeah. So that's kind of, I guess, what we're looking at now. When I went through your book, one of the strongest feelings I had about it was that you're writing about guides as a tool to move into true freedom,
Yeah.
to move past our limitations and onto the path of the soul.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I feel like, and I wonder what you feel about this. I feel like it's been my work since I was born, was to know my soul and to learn my soul and to help people learn their soul.
Oh, yeah. Because I mean, if you're born with intuitive abilities and you develop them, you're so different from everyone else that you're constantly checking into your soul
Mm-hmm. Yep.
to see what's really going on. Is it okay? Should I change? Do I need to cut off all my hair? Do I need to grow it long? What would make the teacher like me better?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get this message that you're okay like you are.
Yeah. And then you keep deepening that message.
Right.
Doesn't stop. Because the more you grow and change and expand and challenge, and there's a whole other level to it, but it's not as hard. It's a lot easier.
And once you get past that initial self-acceptance of being different and that's how it's going to be, you start to like yourself. And then everybody likes you for being different. It's really a weird
Yeah.
oxymoron.
That's so true. It's so true. And then you'll have the experience of people that don't accept you. I have brothers that don't accept me for who I am, and all right, don't.
I know.
Yeah. It's not,
And it's their business.
well, it's too much work to be something I'm not.
I know.
I'm not going to do it any longer. I
Oh, we
can't.
already had to go to school. That was hard enough.
Right.
Live that way.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So it's been so wonderful having you here with us today. Would you share any upcoming activities in your website with us?
Yes, definitely. Right now I'm teaching a lot of people to step into their purpose. So it's one of my biggest things. It's my signature program, Next Level Living. And you can find out about that at marilynalauria.com/next, NEXT. And that is, if you follow me at marilynalauria.com, you opt into my, I have some really fun free gifts on that, as well as my podcast. I would listen to it, whether I'm going to continue it or not. There's almost 200 episodes on there. You can learn a lot about me on Who Can It Be Now. And I'm very active on social media. It's me who's active on social media. It's not some company that I've hired. So, and I'm going to be coming out with, I don't know when this is airing, but I'm going to be coming out with a new opt-in with how you find your purpose. And it's life mission plus skills plus passion equals purpose. And I've created this formula, and it really has changed people's lives. So I'm going to be adding that. So I would say join my website to find that out by Marilyn.
Right. And are you on all social media or just?
I am. I'm active on Facebook. I'm really active on my personal page on Facebook, as well as
Me
business,
too.
Instagram, and I am on the other platforms, YouTube and everything. But I'd say Facebook and Instagram are the biggest.
Right. Yeah. And I have the same thing with Facebook. So all I mostly post are things like this. This will be up next week. I put up pictures of animals in beautiful places in nature, and that's it. But I've never put anything up that's negative. So if you want some positive inspiration, come and find me on Facebook.
That's great.
Thank you so much for being
Thank
with
you.
us today. So for those of you who are listening, you can sign up for my biweekly newsletter at onetrueself.com, onetrueself.com, and you'll receive many tips, and you'll know what's going on with me and what my free offerings are. So everyone, have a wonderful next 2 weeks, and I'll see you next time around. Namaste.
Thank you for listening to the Power of Inspiration and Awakening Radio with Julia Griffin to master a higher frequency for a new state of mind. Join us next time as Julia takes us deeper into the memory of the moments of light where transcendence and enlightenment emerge. The memory of the jewel of consciousness is always lived within you to tap into waves of energy and create huge changes by imagining the beauty of the vision and desires that are hidden in the heart. Learn to find your way back to nature, beauty, and your own heart, which holds the secrets of your existence and future. To discover more about Julia's adventures, animal communication, and the teachings she brings to every show, visit onetrueself.com. That's onetrueself.com. That's ONE, trueself.com.